So I was initially not at all pleased that the 24th season of Arthur only had 3 episodes, but honestly, based on the third episode, I am so glad that's the case. There are so many issues with this episode. This is Freaky Tuesday, and first of all, why is LaDonna there? In the previous episode or segment, DW's new best friend, Bud was there, and DW said he lives down the street, which he doesn't because in the previous season they moved house. And then this episode started with a view of Mr. Ratburn's class, and immediately my eyes shot to LaDonna, and I just thought, they've given up. They don't care. The writers have no care about consistency, about accuracy, about knowing the show they're writing for, because they're including characters who shouldn't be there. And I've just lost faith. I have no hope for the 25th season. No hope whatsoever. I hope it will prove me wrong. But also, there's one decision that was made in this episode that I just thought really, really destroyed it. In fact, two decisions. One's a spoiler, one isn't. Freaky Tuesday is all about Mr. Ratburn and Buster swapping bodies. There's a science experiment in the teacher's lab. Buster goes in to use the pencil sharpener, fair enough, and they both touch this metal plate that's holding the science experiment. And Mr. Ratburn and Buster swap bodies, and I thought, okay, this might be cool. I'm a big fan of Freaky Friday. Let's see what they do with it. But they they kept their voices in the wrong bodies, which first of all doesn't make sense because that's not how voice boxes work. So when Mr. Ratburn in Buster's body spoke, he spoke with Mr. Ratburn's voice, and when Buster in Mr. Ratburn's body spoke, he still had Buster's voice. So why was nobody questioning why Mr. Ratburn was speaking in Buster's voice, or why Buster was speaking in Mr. Ratburn's voice? That is a massive oversight, because immediately that would give the game away. Had they had the voices correct for their bodies, nobody would have experienced any kind of weird situation surrounding them. But also, it means that it would have sounded funny. To hear Mr. Ratburn's voice saying things that Buster would say, and to hear Buster's voice saying things in Mr. Ratburn's mannerisms and intonations, that would have been funny. But instead, it's absolutely normal and everything sounds the way it usually does, and it's dull and it's boring. And also how the episode ended, I won't explain it. Actually, I don't need to explain it to tell you that it was diabolical and a massive cop out and one of the worst ways to conclude a narrative. In fact, I will. Spoiler warning from now. I'm going to spoil what happens at the end of this episode because it's writing 101. If you've ever written any fiction ever, one of the first rules, and this is a spoiler, is don't write this really gripping, compelling narrative, which is an overstretch for this episode, and then end it with, it was all a dream. Writing 101, you do not do that. Occasionally it's fine, but it did not work. And I just thought, oh, so you're just going to say none of this mattered. We're not going to think of a way to resolve the problem. We're just going to break one of the most fundamental, basic rules of writing fiction and tell you that it was all a dream. And that's it. And the writers, I don't know why the writers have not. Maybe there were pay issues. I don't know. Maybe there were salary problems, and they just thought, well, we'll just make a mockery of the show instead, because that's exactly what they've done with this third episode, with both segments, DW's new best friend and Freaky Tuesday. But there were also inaccuracies in the first episode of this season, the one with George and his sculpture. So either they've hired new people, potentially on lower salaries than the previous writers, and they've not given these writers any information, and also they don't know how to write how to conclude a good story, or there was actually a valid reason for them making a complete mockery of the show. And maybe it could have been salary issues, maybe there were budget cuts, and they thought, well, if you're not going to pay us, we'll just ruin the show. So I'm really annoyed, really, really annoyed, because not because I wanted the episode to be perfect, but because there are so many things wrong with these two segments. And honestly, I don't want Arthur to end on a bum note. I have seen the very last segment before, but I haven't seen anything else from season 25. And if it's anything like this episode, it's going to be a disaster.